times. What has it been against the Catamounts that has allowed you to be able to do what you want on offense and run the football so well?
Well, it was interesting. The last 2 years, I thought we were a lot more efficient. Is the third year, going back 3 years, because we watched that game last week as well, is the difference in that game right there. We got the ball all the way into the red zone, and that was our Achilles heel in 2007 was once we got the ball in the red zone, we had turned the ball over 3 times that game inside the red zone. We just didn't convert on points. And that wasn't a mistake that we were going to make ever again. Is last year we were much better in the red zone. This year we've been a lot better in the red zone. Part of it is we've adjusted our offense to be a little bit better of a red zone offense as well. So that's the number one thing, is we were much more efficient in the red zone. Number two is we were able to surface them out a little bit. We gave them more 3- and 4-man surfaces in our formations and try to create different gaps for them to be able to fill. That's a very difficult thing for defenses to be able to adjust to against a triple option team. When you can do that and run the ball effectively in there, you're going to have a little bit more success in our offense.
You brought up earlier the 2 for 11 number on third down, but you guys were perfect on fourth down. Was it a case of not staying far enough ahead of the what led to the difficulties converting on third down?
Knowing that we really didn't have to is the number one thing. Is if you don't, if you know you have 2 to get this, is the first one may be the setup play. The first call may be a call that you're just wasting. You're going to say, hey, let's see what we get out of this play. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we throw a counter in there just to see how it works. If we can connect on a big play, that's a good deal for us. Knowing that we were going to go for it on the fourth down no matter what. I felt confident mostly because of the way Brandon was running. When Brandon can run that way, he can get a yard.
You beat me to my next question then. When people look at the stat sheet, that 2 for 11 is glaring, but for the offense that you run, does it make a difference if you pick up a first down on third down or fourth down?
No, I always say that's why they give you 4 downs, right? It's not in Canada. They give you 3 up there.
Yeah, and you guys are perfect on fourth downs to keep the drives alive Saturday. I want to ask about the onside kick, because you had the penalty on a touchdown that allowed you to kick it off at midfield, and you went with the onside kick, which was executed perfectly, a little dribbler up the middle. Jacob fell right on it, and that seemed to change the tone. Take us through that process of making that decision and then why it worked so well.
So you really have 2 decisions there, really, in our mind. You have 2 decisions. If you are going to play aggressive, which is the number one thing, so you just eliminate that. We're definitely going to play aggressive. So you're going to do one of 2 things. Is you're going to take the ball on the 1.5 yard line and you're going to go for 2. That was certainly in our thought process. We were going to do that. However, we were feeling good about where we were at. We were feeling good about our particular onside kick. So that was the option that we chose to go with, was let's be aggressive here. Now, what are we really giving up in field position right there? If they fair catch the thing is at the 25 yard line, we could probably, even if they recover the onside kick, it was at the 35 where we recovered it right there. So you're giving up 10 yards in field position. Defense was playing outstanding. We felt good about the call, so we decided to go with that call, and let's try to make it an aggressive call for us. And fortunately, it worked out very well. We've got a way to kill the play off if it wasn't there. So it really was a kind of check with me kind of play, and Coach West had that all schooled up, which was nice. But we've been repping it for probably about 5 or 6 weeks, to where if we ever got into this situation, these were our 2 kind of deals that we were going to go with, and we went with the onside kick deal, and it ended up working out well for us.
Yeah, it worked out perfectly. I think outside of the program, when Coach Gunter left, there could have been some cause for concern with the great job he's done with the special teams. But now this year, you guys with a couple more blocks on special teams. Matt has been excellent. Even when he's out, Gage has done a good job filling in. Obviously, Jacob kicking the football. And on onside kicks, you're 2 for 2. So Coach West has come in, and special teams, it seems like, hasn't missed a beat. Yeah,
and JP did a great job. We got a lot of blocks last year. The number one thing about the way that we do it is there's 2 things. One is we're being aggressive, as we know that is we're going to have to do that to win football games. We want to put people on their heels. Number 2 is the way that punt teams are anymore. They're spread out so far that it's hard to get a 10-yard return, which is used to be a pretty good average. A 10-yard return would be outstanding right now. So you're not getting a whole lot out of the return game anymore. You're fair catching more often than not. You're getting a lot of rugbies. You're getting a lot of spread punts. They're not really tight in there anymore. So punt returning has become a little bit of a thing, lost art unless you're in the NFL, where they all tight punt punt it. So that was the number one thing. Number two is finding different ways. I think we've got senior and upper class kickers where they go over there and they practice, and Coach West works with them, and that's all he does all day is he looks at special teams, which is huge at our level. We don't have quite the staff or the manpower to be able to devote that. So when I went to coaching the A-backs, that freed up a spot for him to be able to go and just create a special team spot, which I thought has worked out tremendously over the last 2 years.
Yeah, special teams have been excellent, certainly a strong suit. Let me ask you, because you brought up the punt returns have become more difficult these days in college football. I know in the NFL it's been really hard to now recover onside kicks because of the rule changes. You guys are 2 for 2 in onside kicks this year. Over the last couple of years, have there been changes in the rules to the onside kicks in college football that has made it any more difficult?
Well, in the NFL, they don't give you the running start anymore, so that's very difficult. Number two is with us, they only give you the 5 yards, and once you break that 5-yard barrier, then you're offsides. So it has become a little bit more difficult. What we look for in that particular onside was because it was in a normal situation. It wasn't in a last-second kind of desperation situation, what we call desperation onsides. That's what we call middle dribble. It's a kick that if you catch somebody not covering the middle of the field, number one, or leaving early on their kickoff team. What we saw against Elon was out-leveraging the kickoff return team as well. We happen to out-leverage them. Our number one guy, which is the guy closest to the widest part of the field, was leveraging their tackle, their widest guy. So when we saw that, we figured we had a pretty good opportunity to be able to get a squib over there. So there's all sorts of different ways to be able to skin the cat there, and we were able to look for it, take advantage of it, and call it. That's the number one thing. I mean, you're giving up field position if you don't get those.
And then not only did you recover the onside, very next play you hit Riley Webb for a 39-yard touchdown. So 2 touchdowns in the span of 10 seconds there, and that seemed like one of those classic sudden possession changes, take a shot downfield, and it paid off.
Yeah, I originally had another play called, and I had changed it to make sure that wasn't our best play action for the week. So I wanted to make sure that this was the opportunity that we get our best play action call for the week. If it doesn't work, I still felt confident to be able to march down the field and be able to get points on the board. However, we wanted to get our best play action with our best play action guy for the week, and it happened to be one of those scenarios. And really, they had it covered. He just caught him flat-footed again. Raleigh got behind him, and to be honest with you, I thought the ball was overthrown.
I was going to say, it was a nice catch, him reaching out there, a little bit of a snow cone, it looked like.
Yeah, it was just a little bit behind it. Raleigh makes a great adjustment to it, and really it's hard to overthrow Raleigh. He's so darn fast.
I know it. Let's shift over to the defense as we're talking about Saturday's win against Western Carolina here on the Coaches Show. The head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. On defense, 6 sacks on defense, most of those coming in the fourth quarter alone. The defense, they were able to force some turnovers, get after the quarterback there in the second half, and make sure you guys were able to close out that victory.
That's what I love about our defense right there, is I know that there's certain times, we gave up leverage on one play. We had a guy responsible for leverage. We just gave up leverage on one play. We were going to get another sack out of it. And then Tyree, we know he's dangerous. He's going to get down the sideline, but we tackled it up. We got him out of bounds. So I love the way the defense pressures the quarterback. I love the way that they are able to create negative yardage plays. I also know that sometimes, it's going to go against us, and he's going to scramble out there, and there's going to be times where it doesn't work to our favor. But really, you saw, and mostly in the fourth quarter there, it's tough to score against those guys. You're not giving them a whole lot of time in the pocket. We felt like we had an advantage with some of our schemes to the inside, and we had some blitz schemes going on, and I thought our secondary held up fairly well.
And then 3 consecutive possessions, you force a turnover defensively there in the second half against Western Carolina when it looks like they're trying to move the ball and get back into the game, and the defense coming up with more big plays.
Yeah, they bailed the offense out. Let's face it, they were 3 and out on offense, and we were able to get 2 or 3 turnovers. And if it wasn't for that, the game was swinging back the other way. And that's what I was disappointed at in the second half. I thought our first drive in the second half was fine. We got off track, no big deal. The next 2 drives are the ones that bothered me. We went 3 and out when we were essentially doing fairly well all game long. And I don't know if we lost our focus. We changed a couple things up. But really, most of it probably we should have just gotten back to basics. And when we got to the fourth quarter, I said, let's just get back to basics. Let's call it. Let's pump the fullback back in there. And eventually, sometimes you try to out-scheme yourself. That was the best thing to do.
I've talked with defensive coordinator Coach Grantham about this, but obviously every coach will love to have more turnovers from their defense. Is that something you can anticipate as these guys get more and more familiar with the scheme as the season goes along?
Well, not only this year, but really for the next few years, I think you can anticipate a lot more of it. Is guys knowing where to be, guys being in the right spots, guys just kind of knowing how the ball is going to come out, and in the anticipation of a pick, which is what we're getting better at. Destin Mack's pick was a tremendous pick there. Really, he was trying to boot through it across his body and happened to be in a great position. And those are the things that I have expectations of, because when you flush a guy out of the pocket, he's got nowhere else to go. He's going to throw one up and give one to you.
Their quarterback, Tyree Adams, as we covered last week, a dual-threat athletic quarterback. He had a couple of good runs, but when you removed him from the equation, Western Carolina's running backs averaged about 2.5 yards per carry. They only had 41 yards from the running backs. Your defense got a stop on, I think it was 3rd and 1 and then 4th and 1, back-to-back plays there in the first half. The defensive line looked like they did a good job up front keeping Western Carolina, and they didn't get much push on the ground outside of the quarterback scrambles.
Yeah, another team that does a good job. They've got a quarterback run game that's good. They've got a running back that's good, and then they're able to push the ball to the perimeter on their screen game, which is always deadly against teams that like to pressure and blitz a lot. So you got to be careful of all those things. And Tyree he's just an explosive athlete. At any moment he can change the game, and I felt he was starting to change the momentum of the game until we were able to create some turnovers.
And for the effort and the win on Saturday, you even got the Defensive Player of the Week in the Southern Conference out of it.
Yeah, Marquise did a great job. He was the guy that actually lost leverage on the play that got him out. But other than that, he did an outstanding job all day long.
He had a couple of sacks as well Saturday in that win against Western Carolina as the Bulldogs got their first win in conference play here in 2019. Time for our first break here on the Coach's Show with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant located at 17 Lockwood Drive here in downtown Charleston, where you can find us every Wednesday during the football season. We'll continue to talk about that good win for the Citadel on Saturday, as well as get ready for the big game this upcoming Saturday on the road against Furman, ranked 8th in the country, and get to any fan-submitted questions as well, which you can do on Twitter using the hashtag AskCoachBT. That's all coming up here with you till the top of the hour. It's the Coach's Show with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, right here on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. Text MARK to 234-231-9284. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
Style, selection, service, quality, value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better. How do we make sure there's toppings in each? Papa John's Pizza? We check 80,000.
Back on the Coaches Show here at the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston, 17 Lockwood Drive, with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, as we've been recapping the good win for the Citadel Saturday against Western Carolina here at home, and now they hit the road to take on 8th-ranked Furman this Saturday, 1 o'clock kickoff. Coverage begins here in the Low Country at 11 a.m. on the Citadel Radio Network, and we'll dive into that game coming up to get ready for the big kickoff Saturday. But a few other things to touch on beforehand. And Coach, you have your weekly press conference, of course, every Monday. And when asked about this matchup with Furman and the rivalry, you alluded to how you see on your Twitter feed the talk about this rivalry and how important it is to beat Furman. I do want to ask you about social media just in general, as we are now in 2019. And the first question would be, how much can you use social media to your advantage as a football program, whether it's recruiting or anything else to help build the program now that maybe that wasn't the case just a few years ago?
Yeah, I'm not great on Twitter. To me, it's more self-promotion. I'm not really a big self-promotion guy. Mm-hmm. However, there is a need for it. There is a need in recruiting for it, not only to be able to track, monitor your recruiting and your current players as well. And there's some things that just sometimes you get news quicker that way. And that's the only reason why I really have a Twitter account. I was off it for a little while, and I'm actually probably a better person when I'm off of it, and including all social media. However, I do find myself a need to be on there to be able to kind of monitor things. Unfortunately, what it creates is you're always constantly on. You're never really off. I mean, you can be at home searching Twitter, worrying about worried about what your guys are doing, what possible recruiting is going on, who's offered who, what, and all that other stuff. So it can be a really tangled web that you weave when you get involved in social media. It's difficult. You got to kind of sort it out, and you got to put your phone down at some point too.
Yeah, certainly. I'm with you on that. You mentioned the monitoring. How much do you, as a staff, have to monitor current players and what they're doing on social media?
So we have a guy that's assigned to it. We've got 2 guys actually that are assigned to it, and then John Brush, our media guy, does a lot of it as well. If there's anything that comes across, not promoting the program or not promoting themselves in the way that the Citadel expects or our football program expects, then we'll take some corrective measures.
Speaking of Twitter, you can always join the conversation that way using hashtag AskCoachBT to submit your questions each and every week. One listener, one fan, was asking about the health of the team. First and foremost, with the punter, I've been asking you every week, so let's get another update. How is Matt Campbell?
Matt did kick today. He kicked a little bit yesterday, and to me, he looked really good. And he was a game-time decision last week. Last week was maybe a little bit of a stretch. This week, maybe a little bit better of a chance. But if he's got an opportunity to go, I'm sure he'll go. He was in good spirits about it today when I asked him. So I feel good about where he's at.
Overall, we know about the late bye week, overtimes already in 2 of the games this year. Just overall, how's the status of the guys overall for this point in the season, doing well physically?
Yeah, we came out fairly healthy out of the Western game. We've got one guy that may not play with an ankle injury right now, but he'll be probably a game time, maybe a Friday decision as well. But other than that, I think we feel pretty good about where we're at.
Honestly, I have to apologize for my ignorance. I don't know what you can even say on the topic, if anything, but someone was tweeting about the recruiting. How has recruiting been going so far?
It's a little bit slower this year. We don't have quite as many scholarships available this year, so we're going to take our time. We will sign a few in December. However, we're going to probably push a lot of them over to January and February to make sure that we fill the needs, and particularly we've got a few needs on the offensive line that we've got to address, and we've got just a couple more spots on the defense that we need to bolster a little bit, one being the defensive line. So we're going to take our time a little bit. You'll see about a handful of guys in December, but most of our guys in probably more January, February.
That question coming in from Christian Game asking about calling the plays at the line of scrimmage as opposed to huddling up. What do you like about the idea of huddling up and sending in the plays from the sideline and running the offense that way?
Well, so 2 years ago we decided to get away from calling them at the line of scrimmage, and it goes back to almost what we were talking about before, whereas we were not a very good red zone team, and part of that was being able to, when you address the line of scrimmage, and with our offense in particular, there's a couple things that have to go on. One is you got to find all of your read keys, pitch keys, all that other stuff right there. And Dominique was pretty good at it, and he could call and get you into the right play at the line of scrimmage. But number two is you show your formation to the defense. And that was okay because we were only in about 1 or 2 or 3 formations over the course of a particular ball game, and we were fairly balanced in there, and we were going to try to out-execute and take advantage of certain things. But when we went to a more formationally oriented offense like we have been, we were much better in the red zone. We're not letting people line up to us. We're not letting people get all their keys, reads, especially when you're running the triple option. Is if you're in this formation, I'm going to fit here, I'm going to fit here. They get a lot more time to diagnose your formation, which I never liked. I wanted to put the defensive coordinator on a little bit of a time clock for us, and I think that's helped us out when we've gone to more formations. We've gone to the tight end set in there, as you see. We've gone to 3-man services and 4-man services. That's hard for people to get lined up to in a short amount of time. So I thought that was more advantageous for us. It's made us a lot better in the red zone. And then the last thing is we had a younger defense. Mm-hmm. And when you have a younger defense, you want to keep them off the field. As you notice, we've gone from, probably a marginal 31-32 team minute kind of a team to 36-37 minutes, and taking more plays off the defense has certainly helped our defense out. And you don't want to put those guys in a bad situation. That's like I was disappointed when we went 3 and out. That puts too much pressure on those guys to be able to bail you out, which they did an excellent job of. So for all those reasons combined is why we changed our thought process. 1 being red zone, 2 being allowing teams to line up to you and sit there and watch everything that you're doing, and 3 trying to be a little bit more multiple in our game, our play action game. Is when you can move guys like Raleigh Webb around, is they've got to be able to adjust to all your different fronts and formations, and it's particularly difficult in the secondary.
And it makes total sense. And heading into Saturday's game, you guys were first in time of possession. I imagine still there now, even after Saturday's win. Let me ask you probably a dumb question. I should probably know the answer. But, in the NFL, they have the headsets and the helmets that they can send the calls in from even upstairs in the booth. How come that does not exist in college where you still send in the play calls with a substitute from the sideline?
I think that there would be huge discrepancy amongst all of the schools. You got to think that the rules that pertain to Division I pertain to Division III all the way down. So you're talking about technology. It's the same reason why we don't have it in the locker rooms, why we don't have it up in the booth. I'm not a particularly big fan of it. I love the way that we do it. There's a reason why college is like that. I love college football for all the different offenses and all the different ways that we can do things different than the NFL. Is that just creates more, because what it does is it creates this, is your call sheet now goes from play calls that are 2 or 3 words long to all of a sudden now you can have play calls that are 8 to 10 words long, and you can have them kill plays and check plays at the line of scrimmage because it's all going feeding right directly to the quarterback. If you ask a kid to shuttle in a play like we do or signal in a play like that, the game of telephone when you're in kindergarten, and that thing will get changed 2 different times before it gets out to the team. Yeah,
it's like Spider or Y2 banana. What the play that Gruden always uses as the example. Talking with Coach Thompson here on the Coaches Show for Citadel Football, getting ready for the game Saturday with Furman. This is, of course, my second year with the program. Has there ever been a time that you did use the big play cards on the sideline with celebrities' faces, or has it always been that old school style of using the stuff?
No, we did have them one year. This was great. As we were coming out of, I think, the 2015 or 2016 year. It was going into 2016. I remember now. I happened to be watching Navy's Navy's offense in the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 2 sets of play cards, and they're a triple option team. And I looked at them, and I said, man, that's kind of interesting. So I called up my buddy up there. I said, what do those cards mean? He goes, absolutely nothing. So then I called my buddy Ian, who's the head coach at Jacksonville, but he was the offensive coordinator at Army for years. And he actually ran the cards. And I got the whole system from him, and I thought about it, The hard part with that system is you're very limited in your play calls. We have tagged plays, and when you run the veered, you've got different ways of blocking it and schemes of blocking it. You've got to be very vanilla when you do that. The teams that do that, the Oregons with Chip Kelly there, and the Oklahoma States, they have 1 or 2 play calls, and that's it as far as, and they've got an adjustment off of it here or there. So they're very, very specific in their play calls.
So you did use those for a period of time. Did you have like celebrity faces? Is that
we did. Oh yeah, we did. We had Barstool up there. I mean, we had Jack Watson up there. Maybe I don't know, we had guys up there that we didn't even know what they were doing. But yeah, they meant nothing.
All right. One other question that came in from the listeners and from the fans from LSID123 was asking. We're going to get into the Furman matchup more so, but when you look at the tape and you look at Furman and how good they've been, 8th in the country so far, the one game that does stand out was their matchup with ETSU, which was able to slow down Furman, hold them to 17 points, about 300 yards of offense, where on the flip side, Furman could do no wrong offensively against Samford. So just comparing maybe those 2 games, when you looked at the tape and reviewed this team, what was the biggest difference where Furman struggled on one Saturday and then looked like a completely dominant team last Saturday?
Well, the number one thing is ETSU is really good on defense. They've got great defensive personnel. They've got the defensive player of the year over there, Nasir Player. So those guys, they know what they're doing. They play a very physical game. They're a difficult team on defense to defend. And the second thing that ETSU does in watching more of their offense is they are a ball control team. They will make an attempt to run the football. They have some pretty good possession wide receivers out there. They've got some big, tall, lanky guys. So really that combination was able to hold that game pretty close. And really ETSU turns the ball over fairly late in the game and really took away any chance of them having to come back and try to tie the game at 17.
One last question from Dogfan 1987. We talked about those sacks earlier that came in the fourth quarter, and he was asking about those sacks, and we did touch on it, but that increase of sacks, was that a case of dialing up the pressure? Was it a case of being able to pin the ears back because you knew they were going to pass? What led to, at a point there, sack after sack after sack, it seemed, in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I think Coach Grantham had him where he wanted him, and when he does that, and he can dial into you a little bit, I thought it was more of, hey, we've got them exactly where we want them. The run game wasn't fearful. The quarterback run game was the only thing fearful of him. And, of course, he did get out the one time. But other than that, he had contained and he had the quarterback locked up. And he was very sound in what he was doing there. So he was going to bring the pressure. And when you get behind the chains against Tony, trust me, as a play caller, it's very, very difficult to bail yourself out.
You can participate each week. Submit questions using the hashtag AskCoachBT. We'll see if we can get to any others between now and the top of the hour. But when we come back, we'll look ahead to Saturday's game at Furman, 8th-ranked team in FCS football, 1 o'clock kickoff in the Upstate, and we'll get you set for that one when we return. It's the Coach's Show with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, here from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
Now get an extra-large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. Text MARK to 234-231-9284. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt Boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better. How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite?
Okay. Back at the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant in downtown Charleston at 17 Lockwood Drive for the Coaches Show, where we're here every Wednesday for the Coaches Show with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson. Coach, your lovely family's here tonight as well, and Halloween just 2 weeks away. Are you gearing up? You ready for Halloween at the end of the month?
I believe they're geared up. I have no idea what they are, but I think they are.
I got the costumes planned and everything. Halloween coming up in just a couple of weeks. Furman on tap for this Saturday for you and your Bulldogs. Let's talk about that game. Furman ranked 8th in the country. The only 2 losses against FBS teams. When you look at this Furman team on film, how good are they truly?
They're very explosive on offense. They find a way to get you in matchups. They run a similar style of an offense. They don't ask the quarterback to execute all the plays. However, he can throw it, and they can find the open receivers, and they have a way, kind of similar to what we do, of finding a way to take advantage of your coverage and catch you in a run support situation where you don't like to get that situation. And he finds the open receiver and puts it on the money.
How would they compare, if at all, to any teams that you played so far this year? Are they similar to anyone? Are they better than any team you've played so far?
Hard to tell. Offensively, they're putting up a lot of points. They're rushing for a lot of yards. They're throwing the ball. They're very efficient in the throw game. So in that regard, they're nothing like anybody else that we've played as far as the offense is concerned. Defensively, I think they're very solid on defense. They do a good job. They get you off the field, and when they do, they can score a lot of points in a hurry.
There have been some common opponents between you guys with Charleston Southern and Samford. The transitive property doesn't exist in sports, but is there anything you can take away from watching them go up against teams that you have already played?
No, very difficult. The first game of the year was the Charleston Southern game. I just watched Charleston Southern play Kennesaw on TV the other day, and I thought Charleston Southern played outstanding defense. I thought they moved the ball fairly well on offense, turned it over a couple times against a very good Kennesaw team. So I think teams get better, and that's very hard at the beginning of the year to determine wins and losses against each other. And then Samford, Samford has been always good on offense. They struggled on defense a little bit. And even in our game, I thought we had our opportunity to put them away, and we just couldn't. Up by 14 points.
You mentioned Kennesaw. Have you been in contact at all with Coach Harrell?
I have not, and that's the reason why I watched it. I wanted to see it, and they were playing really well on defense.
Kennesaw State against Charleston Southern. So this Furman team that you get ready to take on Saturday, 6-4 last year, now 8th in the country. What is the biggest difference so far for this team compared to a year ago?
The quarterback. He was a true freshman last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to redshirt him because they played a couple of different quarterbacks, got 6 wins out of it, played it very, very smart, and he was able to get this young man ready, get Granger ready to go, and this year he's a lot different. And they've got a good running back, and they've got a good couple of wide receivers there, so they've gotten a little bit older on offense, but the offense has been really the telltale between the two years.
What makes that quarterback so difficult to try to stop?
One, he's athletic, and two, he throws the ball very well.
When we look at the Citadel schedule every year, you were joking Monday at the press conference about the amount of rivals that the Citadel seems to have, whether it's Charleston Southern now, you have Wofford, you have Furman, you have VMI. I asked you this last year, but remind me, how would you rank the rivals? Where does Furman come in on that list? Obviously, you want to beat them all, but in terms of who you consider the biggest rivals, how would you order them?
Ooh. That's tough, really. It's a tough time to ask me that question, too, just coming off the VMI one, because all of a sudden that one may just jump to the top of the list. Of course, these guys, going back to 2 years ago, they've kind of risen on that list as well. And then Wofford, every year Wofford's been a back-and-forth game for us. It's been a close ball game the last 2 or 3 years. Of course, we had 16 straight losses against them. That was like kind of a get off our back, and now we've got to get back on top of that rivalry again as well. So they're all difficult. Furman's right there at the top right now, and I think if you had to rank them all, those guys in purple would be probably number one on my list.
And I think it depends who you ask and when you ask them as well and how they would order them. But you said Monday during that press conference that you do like the amount of rivals, having 4 teams on the schedule every year that you can consider a rival and get ready for that game.
Yeah, like no other place I've been. This is the place that I was at Northeastern. We had no rivals. I mean, UMass may have been our rival that year. But really, for years, and in many places I was at, you had no rivals. And here I come here and you've got 4, and you don't know which one to put at the top of the list, so you put them all there. And there's something to be, something to play for. And we've got a great Greenville connection. That's what I always say up there is I don't want to go back up to the Greenville club with another loss on my resume.
I made the mistake. I wore a purple sweater to a random Citadel basketball game this year. It wasn't against Furman. I know. I heard about it. And Coach Baucom told me before the game, you may want to take that out of your repertoire. I learned quickly to get rid of all the purple in my wardrobe when I took the job here at the Citadel. I then made the mistake again by wearing my Vikings jersey to your press conference Monday during Furman week, wearing purple. My question is, did you quickly remove all the purple from your closet when you came here to Charleston?
I have 0 purple in my closet, number 1. Number 2 is I have everything and my wife can probably attest to this, it's blue, white, navy blue, white, or it is black and gray at this point. I mean, I've even looked at my closet and go, I can't even wear anything else. I don't have anything else to wear right now. And I like it that way.
Yeah. It goes with everything, and it makes your options simple. We were, for me personally, at Wofford last year to start the year, played in the Upstate. Now heading back in that direction to take on Furman, and I know there's a large alumni base up there. They came out, they supported against Wofford. So when you go to the Upstate, take on Furman or Wofford, it seems like there are a good amount of Citadel fans at those road games.
We travel well, and we travel well in most places. We travel as good as anybody, if not better than most. And we will travel extremely well this week when we have 450 knobs coming to the game, which will be awesome. That'll be another great atmosphere, as we did for Wofford that game as well, and the Georgia Tech game this year. So that was kind of neat. We want to make sure that we do put on a good show for those guys up there because they're very supportive. Like I said, I go up to Greenville maybe 3 or 4 times a year and speak to the club up there, play golf up there, enjoy a lot of the alumni up there, and it is a source of pride for those guys up there, and we want to bring one back for them.
And you said the last trip there 2 years ago against Furman may have been the worst performance for the Citadel team while you were here.
By far.
What went wrong that day, and what do you hope to do differently this Saturday?
Yeah, we came out flat. We came out extremely flat, nothing to play for, kind of a sense, and that's really should never be the case. I took for granted that we had a game and that we should be up always to play a game, and that's the last time I really want to take that for granted a little bit. we really got to be able to make sure that we show up and play every single day. And I always refer back to that game. I said, if you don't show up for every single game, that's what could happen to you. And that was very embarrassing. And that should never happen to us.
We'll continue to break down Saturday's matchup with Furman. 1 o'clock kickoff in the upstate that you can catch in the low country on the Citadel Radio Network. That begins with coverage at 11 a.m. But time for our final break. Come back. We'll get ready for Saturday and wrap up the show as well. It's the coach's show here with the head coach of the Citadel Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, from the Marina Variety Store and Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive, right here on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
All right. Pizza, we check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. Text MARK to 234-231-9284. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See what everyone is talking about. Ashley Furniture Home Store.
Charleston Crab House has been serving locals and visitors alike for the last 20 years. We have our crispy whole flounder. We have the seared ahi tuna. You name it, in the seafood business, we have it.
Be sure to stop by the Tiger and Leaf Lounge whenever you visit our locations. We have many frozen and specialty drinks, awesome margaritas. One of my favorites is the Wapu Punch.
If you don't like it down in the historic district, come over to James Island, sit on the Intercoastal Waterway. It is an unbelievable view where it's southern seafood at sensible prices and a darn good time.
It's hard to get something right the first time, or even the 25th. To become an expert requires a lot of hard work. But ultimately, the more experienced you are, the better you become. The doctors and team at Roper St. Francis Healthcare are the area's most experienced. We mend the most adult hearts, we perform the most joint replacements, and we treat the most adult cancers. When it comes to what matters most, your health, choose the most experienced team. Roper St. Francis Healthcare. Experience matters.
Seals Outboard has been selling quality products for over 50 years. Products like Sea Hunt boats with its exclusive Carolina Flare Vortex hull design for the driest, smoothest, most comfortable ride on the water. Located in Mount Pleasant and Charleston, Seals Outboard is a 5-star certified dealer for Yamaha outboards. Your boating adventures are endless in possibilities with a boat from Seals Outboard. See us at sealsoutboard.com.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa John's pizza? We check 80,000 times a year. Now get an extra large 2-topping pizza for just $11. Everyone's doing their part to make your game day better. How do we make sure there's toppings in each bite of Papa?
Back at the Marina Variety Restaurant here in downtown. at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston for the Coaches Show as we wrap it up with one final segment. The hour always goes by so quickly as we get ready for the game with Furman this Saturday on the road. 1 o'clock kickoff. Coverage begins at 11 a.m. in the Low Country here locally. And the Bulldogs will hit the road to try to get a big win against the 8th-ranked Paladins there in the Southern Conference on Saturday. And wrapping things up with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Thompson, as we continue to get ready for that game. And, Coach, when you look at this matchup, two teams that love to possess the football. So it'll be a battle in the time of possession game, which certainly shortens the game and the amount of possessions you get. In a game like this, does that help when there's fewer possessions for each team?
I don't know if it helps. It depends on if you can play with fewer possessions. If we can get off the field on defense, if we can keep our eye disciplined, because that's what they get you on, is they get you playing one thing, and then they throw the ball behind you, as do we. However, we've got to be able to possess the ball on offense to make sure. You either got to possess it or you got to score. And if you can do one of those two things, I think you got a pretty good chance to win it, either team.
What do you do to make sure that the time of possession does stay even, since both teams want to try to possess the football for about 40 minutes?
Number one is get first downs, is just continue to move the chains. The number one thing that happens to you when you're trying to possess the ball is you get impatient. And when you get impatient, you start to do things a little bit out of your wheelhouse. And when you get things out of your wheelhouse, you've got to recover from those if you don't get them. Is if you're taking chances on first and second down, you better make sure that you can get it on third down and go for it on fourth down.
On Monday during your press conference, you said that to beat Furman, it's going to take your best football game. What would that look like to play your best Saturday and get a win?
Well, number one is defense. Is if we can play, if we can get them behind the chains, is they will work a little bit more difficult when you know what they're doing. The hard part is when they work ahead of the chain, just like us. If they are in second and medium, second and short, third and short, when they know they're going to go for it on fourth down, that's where it becomes difficult and challenging to be able to defense them. Offensively, for us, it'll be just staying on track. It'll be possessing the football. Turnovers will limit your possessions, and if you don't turn the football over, you've got a better than good chance of winning the game.
Going up against this Furman team, I was looking at the numbers earlier today. Their running backs have totaled up over 1,800 yards on the ground. They only have a total of negative 25 rushing yards this year. So it seems like they're usually moving forward. It's hard to get them in the backfield. The offensive line, I know, has a couple of all-conference players as well. But it seems like this offense for Furman is always moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and it goes back to my first point: is if you're staying ahead of the chains, then they're doing pretty well.
They have a new defensive coordinator for them this year, but he's been on the staff now, just calling the plays this year. From what you've seen on tape, has anything seemed different? Any big changes from years past?
No, very similar. They're very good on defense, well-structured, know what they're doing, fairly disciplined in there. Very similar to when Coach Staggs was there.
The number one defense in the conference for Furman, they're led by, it looks like a good linebacking crew. And when you look at that defense on film and what you guys have to do Saturday, where are their strengths? What are some of the challenges going to be?
Their two outside linebackers are very athletic. They're pretty good. They've got seniors in the secondary, so they know what they're doing on the back end as well. And they're holding it down. They're not quite as experienced as they were last year up front, but they do a good job of holding it down. They keep the linebackers clean, which is what they ask them to do.
Furman's 8th in the country. I mean, anytime you beat a top 10 team, especially if you were to do it on the road, and especially in the conference where it really opens the door for just about everybody in the Southern Conference once they get a loss, what would a win like this Saturday mean for this program moving forward here in 2019?
Well, first of all, just beating Furman would be a huge it would be a huge benefit for us just moving forward as far as team morale, right? Is I think we still have a pretty good chance at this. We're in good shape, and it kind of lays out the rest of the conference for us. Is if you can get a win against these guys, I think you've got a pretty good chance of being able to move on and get a couple more wins and move yourself up the rankings, which is what we're looking to do.
And I'm sure we've already touched on it as we have a few minutes to go here tonight, but I always ask you towards the end of the show every week, what are the keys to the game to make sure you do go there and beat a good team in Furman and come away with a victory?
Eye discipline. We've got to have eye discipline on defense. We've got to be able to stop the run. We can't give up a big one, and they rely on those two things. They rely on the big run, you doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and number two is you getting your eyes in some spot that you shouldn't be doing. Offensively, you need to really hold on to the football more than any other time. We did a good job last week. We held on to the football. We had very few penalties. We had a couple on offense, and that was about it. We had a couple of unsportsmanlike on defense. We got to eliminate those. Those are the big chunks that get you. Offensively, if we can take care of the football, get first downs, I think we've got a good chance.
You mentioned the struggles there last time, although that was more on your team as opposed to them, or the environment. As you said, there will be a good group of Citadel fans there Saturday. But what is that environment like to play there on the road up in the upstate at Furman?
It's not overly difficult. We've played there at homecoming. It's not an overly loud place. It's a fairly spread out stadium. It's a good environment. They've got a great parking lot environment out there. I think they do a good job of tailgating. But for the most part, once you get in, I mean, it's fairly quiet in there. The stands are set back far enough. We'll have a pretty good crowd on our side behind us, and there's a clear home and away side. So I think it'll be a beautiful day. It's supposed to be in the mid 70s. It should be a good game a good day for a ball game up there. So environment wise, we should have no problems with that.
Sam Weishwerk in the broadcast, Furman grad, great offensive mind. Have you ever had conversations with him? You ever crossed paths?
I've spoken to Coach Weish on many occasions. Just saw him at the Fisher DeBerry Foundation dinner. We always have a great conversation, but when you go back to the Hurry Up No Huddle, he's the inventor of the Hurry Up No Huddle.
That's right.
And he's a guy that I really, growing up when he was with the Bengals, I really enjoyed watching his teams play, and Boomer Esiason, and I was a big fan of those guys.
Yeah, a little bit different than the offense that you guys employ there at the Citadel. So a big game coming up Saturday with Furman. Every game is huge, of course, but going up against one of the rivals and a top 10 team on the road up in the upstate against number 8 ranked, the Furman Paladins, this Saturday with a 1 o'clock kickoff, and coverage will begin at 11 a.m. here in the Low Country. If you're not making the trip up there, or even if you are, take your radio with you. We always tweet out and post on our Facebook page the frequency that you can listen to the game in stadium. If you were to bring one of those old school Walkmans with you, you can listen to the game without a delay in stadium as you watch it as well. So bring your radio with you, come up to the upstate with us, and come support the Bulldogs Saturday in that big game against Furman. Coverage will begin here in the Low Country. If you can't make it, 11 a.m. and online worldwide, but locally on the stations of 102.1 FM, 92.1 FM, and 1450 AM, the radio homes of the Citadel Sports Network. 1 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, and whatever happens, we'll be back here next Wednesday to recap it. Coach, appreciate the time as always, and of course, wish you the best of luck Saturday at Furman.
Thank you. Do you have an old school Walkman, by the way?
I actually threw mine out about a year ago. I used to have one just for those purposes because sometimes I would need one at the stadiums. But bring yours with you Saturday. Listen to the game in the stadium. People still do that. I think so. We'll see you Saturday up there in the upstate, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday to recap the game against Furman as the Bulldogs will take on 8th-ranked Furman this Saturday, 1 o'clock kickoff. Coverage begins in the Low Country at 11 a.m. For the head coach of the Bulldogs, Coach Brent Thompson, I'm Luke Morrow, wishing you a happy rest of your Wednesday. We'll talk to you from the upstate Saturday at 11 a.m. for the Bulldogs and Furman on the Citadel Sports Network.
Thanks, Luke.